Welcome to the lands of science fiction stories. I wish you a pleasant listening experience. In the distant reaches of space, the Alarii, a fragile, wiry alien species, found themselves fleeing from the destruction of their homeworld. They had been wandering the galaxy for centuries, their thin skeletal forms etched with the marks of a life of hardship and fear. Their escape had brought them to the edge of humanity's borders, where they were discovered by Captain Marcus Raines of the Earth Defense Force. Raines, a veteran soldier with sharp instincts and a heart hardened by years of battle, was the first to make contact with the Alarii. His ship, the Aurora's Vengeance, was patrolling the outermost rim of the Milky Way when the refugees' distress signal was detected. As the sleek warship approached the disabled Alarii craft, Raines' crew marveled at the aliens' gaunt forms and large, hollow eyes, creatures clearly not made for war. Raines, however, saw something different, a race on the brink of extinction, hunted for reasons unknown, but worth saving nonetheless. As the Alarii were brought aboard the Aurora's Vengeance, their leader, Exarch Vital, explained in broken English the relentless persecution they had faced from a race known only as the Borg Krill, a mechanical, merciless civilization driven by conquest. "We ran from them, ran until the stars themselves offered no more shelter," Vital rasped, his voice weak from exhaustion. "They will find us. They always do." Raines understood the gravity of the situation. Humanity had encountered many hostile species, but the Borg Krill were different. They were relentless, a juggernaut that absorbed entire worlds into their ever-growing machine empire. Though they had yet to cross paths directly with Earth, the threat was imminent. "We won't let that happen," Raines promised, a heavy burden settling in his chest. "You're under our protection now." The captain's decision was met with skepticism from his crew. Bringing alien refugees aboard was one thing, but taking on the Borg Krill? That was a death sentence. Still, Raines was resolute. Humanity had fought for its place in the stars and would fight for those who sought its protection. It wasn't just about survival, it was about honor. As Raines prepared his ship for the inevitable confrontation, word was sent back to Earth. The message was simple but powerful: don't hurt them. It was a warning, a declaration that humanity would stand between the Alarii and their would-be conquerors. The Alarii ship, now housed within the Aurora's Vengeance, was little more than a derelict husk. Vital and the remnants of his people, barely a dozen left, were kept safe in quarantine. They watched in silence as the humans readied for battle, their hollow eyes reflecting a lifetime of loss. Days later, deep space sensors detected the approaching Borg Krill fleet. Unlike other invaders humanity had faced, the Borg Krill ships moved with mechanical precision, their blocky forms devoid of any organic aesthetic. They were brutal, functional, and terrifying. Raines stood on the command deck, hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the holographic display of the incoming armada. His crew was on edge, their silence betraying the mounting tension. The Borg Krill had dismissed humanity's warning, deeming it insignificant. To them, humans were nothing more than a fleeting species that had yet to prove themselves a threat. "Send them the message again," Raines ordered. His communications officer complied, sending the same transmission out into the void. "Don't hurt them." The response was chilling. The Borg Krill acknowledged the message but made it clear they had no intention of heeding it. Their leader, a massive cyborg whose body was an amalgamation of twisted metal and glowing red eyes, appeared on the view screen. "Your warning is irrelevant," the machine declared in a voice that grated like metal scraping against metal. "We will destroy the Alarii, and any who stand in our way will meet the same fate." Raines narrowed his eyes. "Then you'll learn what it means to cross humanity." The battle was inevitable. The Aurora's Vengeance launched into action, its sleek, predatory form a sharp contrast to the looming Borg Krill ships. Raines had faced impossible odds before, but never on this scale. He knew that even with Earth's finest technology, they were outgunned and outnumbered. The Borg Krill's technology was far more advanced than anything humanity had encountered. But if there was one thing the Borg Krill underestimated, it was human ingenuity. As the Borg Krill fleet descended upon them, The Aurora's vengeance asterisk darted through the chaos of battle like a shark cutting through water. Raines's crew fired salvo after salvo of kinetic and energy-based weapons, their strikes landing with precision against the enemy's mechanical hulls. Despite their technological superiority, the Borg krill found themselves struggling to keep pace with the humans. The Aurora's vengeance was nimble, faster than their sensors could track, its human crew relying on instinct and experience rather than the cold calculations of a machine. As the battle raged on, Raines ordered a daring maneuver, a direct assault on the Borg krill command ship. The Aurora's vengeance broke through the enemy lines, its hull rattling under the strain of enemy fire. But Raines was relentless. He drove his ship forward, dodging and weaving through the maelstrom of destruction. Finally, they reached the heart of the enemy fleet. The Borg krill command ship loomed before them, a monstrous vessel bristling with weapons and shields. Raines's crew hesitated for a moment, the sheer size of the enemy ship overwhelming them. But Raines didn't flinch. He gave the order. "Target the command ship, full power to the weapons." The Aurora's vengeance unleashed its fury. Torpedoes and energy blasts pounded the command ship's shields, which flickered and wavered under the relentless assault. The Borg krill retaliated with a barrage of their own, but the human ship danced between the shots, a deadly predator among giants. With one final push, the Aurora's vengeance delivered a direct hit to the enemy's command bridge. The explosion tore through the Borg krill ship, and for the first time in their mechanical lives, they experienced something close to fear. Victory was close, but Raines knew it was only a matter of time before reinforcements arrived. The Borg krill were a vast empire, and they would not stop until they reclaimed what they had lost. The Alari were safe for now, but the cost of keeping them that way was too great. Raines had prepared for this. He had known from the moment the Borg krill arrived that they would not be defeated by conventional means. In the depths of the Aurora's vengeance, a last-ditch weapon awaited activation, the Omega Protocol. The Omega Protocol was a self-destruct sequence unlike any other. It would create a singularity, a black hole capable of consuming the entire Borg krill fleet. It would also consume the Aurora's vengeance and everything in the vicinity, including Raines, his crew, and the Alari refugees. As the Borg krill reinforcements began to arrive, Raines gave the order. The atmosphere on the Aurora's vengeance was tense, every crew member fully aware of the gravity of their situation. Captain Raines, standing at the center of the command deck, surveyed the incoming Borg krill fleet. They had come, as predicted, in overwhelming numbers, their mechanical precision now targeting the humans who dared challenge them. The blackness of space was alive with the flickering movements of starships, their silhouettes cold and terrifying against the nebula backdrop. Raines turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kyra Maddox, whose eyes reflected a fierce determination. She had fought alongside him for years, surviving countless skirmishes and impossible odds. This battle, though, was different. The stakes were higher, the enemy more ruthless. "How long do we have before the Omega Protocol reaches full activation?" Raines asked, his voice calm yet commanding. 3 hours, Maddox replied, her fingers dancing over the holo console, checking the progress of the sequence. "Once it hits 100%, there's no going back." Raines nodded. "That's enough time. We'll hold the line until then." They moved with unparalleled speed, dodging incoming fire as the Borg krill continued their relentless assault. Raines' crew fought with everything they had, their ship weaving through the carnage, avoiding one death trap after another. But despite their agility and strategic prowess, they were still just one ship against a fleet of thousands. On the lower decks, the Alari refugees watched the battle unfold on the viewports. Their thin frames trembled as they saw their saviors fighting what seemed to be a losing battle. Exarch Vital stood among them, his frail hands clasped in silent prayer, his wide alien eyes filled with guilt. "We cannot let them die for us," Vital murmured, his voice barely a whisper. The Alari leader approached one of the security officers stationed at the entrance of the refugee quarters, his long fingers grasping the human's arm. "Please let us help," Vital implored. "We may not be warriors, but we can assist. We can sacrifice ourselves if it means saving you." The officer hesitated. The Ilarii were a peaceful species, unaccustomed to conflict. But the desperation in Vital's voice was unmistakable. A request like this, in the middle of the battle, was difficult to process. "You've already lost so much," the officer said softly. "This isn't your fight." But Vital shook his head. "It is our fight. You made it yours, and now we will share in your fate." As the Borg Krill ships continued their relentless advance, the Aurora's vengeance took hit after hit. Shields flickered and failed, damage reports flooded in from all corners of the ship, and still Rains held his ground. "Captain, we can't take much more of this," Maddox warned, her voice tight with tension. "Keep them at bay as long as you can. We just need to buy a little more time," Rains responded, eyes locked on the tactical display that showed the enemy encroaching upon their position. In a last-ditch effort, Rains commanded his ship to execute the Serpent's Fang, a high-risk maneuver that involved launching decoy drones to simulate multiple ships, overwhelming the enemy's sensors. The Aurora's vengeance moved like a phantom, confusing the Borg Krill long enough for the humans to regroup and target key enemy ships. Explosions lit up the dark expanse of space as the human ships struck again and again, taking out several Borg Krill vessels. But for every ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Then, as if in response to humanity's final stand, a massive Borg Krill warship emerged from the shadows of space, a colossal vessel larger than anything Rains had ever seen. The flagship of the Borg Krill Armada, its angular design bristling with deadly weapons, loomed above the battlefield like a god of war. "Captain," Maddox's voice wavered as the flagship came into view. "That thing, I see it," Rains interrupted, his tone grim. "Prepare for direct engagement. We won't survive long, but we'll make it count." The Borg Krill flagship opened fire, launching massive beams of energy that tore through space toward the Aurora's vengeance. The human ship barely managed to evade the first volley, but the next hit them hard, causing a cascade of explosions to ripple through the lower decks. The ship shuddered, and warning lights blared across the command deck. Rains gripped the edge of his console, steadying himself as sparks flew and alarms screamed. The shields were nearly gone, and the hull was beginning to crack under the pressure. "We can't last much longer," shouted one of the engineers from their station. "Structural integrity is failing." Rains took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his duty. He had always known this battle would end in sacrifice, but knowing it didn't make it any easier. His thoughts drifted momentarily to the people of Earth, to his family, and to all the lives that depended on humanity's victory here. "We'll go down fighting," he muttered under his breath, before turning to Maddox. "Prepare to broadcast a final message to Earth." Before Maddox could respond, something unexpected happened. The Ilarii refugees, led by Exarch Vital, arrived on the bridge. Their gaunt faces and trembling limbs betrayed their fear, but in their eyes was a strange determination. "We will not let you die alone," Vital said, stepping forward with surprising authority. "The Borg Krill have taken everything from us, but we still have something to give." Rains raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" Vital extended his hand, revealing a small, pulsating device, the Ilari's last secret. "This is all that remains of our greatest technology, a weapon we never wanted to use, but now it may be the only thing that can destroy them." Rains's eyes widened. "You've had this all along?" Vital nodded, his expression heavy with guilt. "We fled from violence, hoping never to have to use it, but now we give it to you. It will trigger a resonance in the Borg Krill's technology, disrupting their systems, perhaps even destroying them entirely." Rains looked at the small device, then back at the looming Borg Krill flagship. He weighed the options, the Omega Protocol ticking down behind him. "Are you sure it will work?" Rains asked, voice low and urgent. "We cannot be certain," Vital admitted. "But if we do nothing, we are all doomed anyway." Rains turned to his crew, his mind racing. "Integrate it with the Omega Protocol. We'll use them together. If the weapon fails, the singularity will finish the job." Maddox immediately set to work, the tension in the air palpable as the final moments of the battle approached. With the integration of the Ilarii weapon and the Omega Protocol complete, the countdown toward the final irreversible moment began. The atmosphere on the Aurora's vengeance was thick with an unspoken understanding. Every crew member knew the weight of their task, knew that, for most of them, this would be their final battle. Captain Marcus Raines stood in the center of the bridge, his eyes locked on the colossal Borg Krill flagship dominating the view screen. It loomed like a vast mountain of metal and menace, the embodiment of everything the Borg Krill represented: cold, calculating, and unyielding. But today, Raines intended to show them something they could never understand: human defiance in the face of annihilation. "All systems are synced, Captain," Lieutenant Kira Maddox reported, her voice steady despite the situation. "The Alari weapon is ready and the Omega protocol will trigger as planned. Once we activate it, there's no going back." Raines nodded. He looked around the bridge, taking in the faces of his crew one last time. They were tense but resolute. They had fought together through countless battles, but this would be the end of the road. "To all crew," Raines began, his voice broadcast throughout the ship, "you've served with honor and courage. What we do here today isn't just for Earth or for humanity, but for every species that dreams of freedom. No matter what happens, know that we've made a difference." The crew responded with a silent, collective acknowledgement. There were no cheers, no rallying cries, just a grim acceptance of their duty. As the countdown toward the Omega protocol ticked down, Exarch Vital and the remaining Alarii huddled in the corner of the bridge, their frail forms seemingly out of place amidst the chaos of battle. Vital met Raines's gaze, his hollow eyes filled with a deep, sorrowful gratitude. "You have shown us kindness beyond anything we could have imagined," Vital said softly. "We only hope this sacrifice will repay the debt we owe." Raines didn't respond with words, only a small nod. Then, turning back to the view screen, he gave the final command: "Fire the Alarii weapon." Maddox pressed the control, and the small pulsating device, now integrated into the ship's systems, activated. There was no visible beam, no immediate sign of its power. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, across the vast expanse of space, the Borg Krill ships began to falter. Their precise movements slowed, their formations collapsing as their systems were disrupted. One by one, the massive vessels lost control, their mechanical joints stiffening and locking up. It was as if an invisible hand had reached into their technological core and twisted it into chaos. Aboard the Borg Krill flagship, sparks flew as control panels exploded, their cold, red-eyed cyborg commander suddenly finding himself powerless. His voice, which had once boomed with arrogance, was now reduced to a mechanical sputter. "This is impossible!" The Borg Krill leader spat through a broken transmission. "You are nothing compared to us!" Raines allowed himself a grim smile. "We're more than you ever understood." But even as the Alarii weapon wreaked havoc on the Borg Krill fleet, Raines knew it wasn't enough. The disruption had crippled them, but it wouldn't last. The Borg Krill would adapt. They always did. The Omega protocol was still necessary. The countdown reached its final minute. "All hands, brace for singularity activation," Raines called out. His voice, though steady, was lined with a quiet resignation. This was it. This was the moment of their ultimate sacrifice. The crew of the Aurora's Vengeance prepared themselves, gripping their consoles, sharing brief, silent glances. There was no panic, no fear, only resolve. As the final seconds ticked away, Raines allowed himself one last look at the stars. He thought of Earth, of the people he had sworn to protect. He thought of his family, long lost to the ravages of war, and of the future generations who would live because of the choice he made today. "Goodbye," he whispered to the universe, and then, with a nod to Maddox, gave the final order: "Activate the Omega protocol." At that moment, the core of the Aurora's Vengeance flared with unimaginable power. A surge of energy cascaded through the ship, converging at its center. Then, in a blinding flash, the Omega protocol triggered the singularity. A black hole began to form, small at first, but rapidly expanding. The Borg Krill fleet, already crippled by the Alarii weapon, had no chance of escape. One by one, their ships were pulled into the gravity well, crumpling like tin cans as the singularity's immense force tore them apart. The Borg Krill flagship, despite its size and power, was no exception. Its hull twisted and shattered, sucked into the void. The Aurora's vengeance held its position for as long as it could, but the Singularity showed no mercy. Rains felt the ship shudder violently as it too was caught in the gravitational pull. "To all of you," Rains said over the intercom, his voice calm as the ship's systems began to fail. "Thank you, we've done it." With that, the Aurora's vengeance was consumed by the Singularity, vanishing into the blackness. In the aftermath of the battle, news of the Aurora's vengeance asterisk and its crew spread throughout the galaxy. Though their sacrifice had destroyed the Borg Krill fleet, it had also sparked something far greater. The Ilarii, now free from their tormentors, rebuilt their shattered society. They honored the humans who had given their lives to protect them, erecting monuments to Captain Marcus Rains and his crew. Their story became legend, a testament to the power of unity, courage, and sacrifice. Humanity, too, mourned the loss of the Aurora's vengeance, but they did so with pride, knowing that their actions had saved not just one species but countless others from the grip of the Borg Krill. Across the galaxy, other races began to stand against oppression, inspired by the humans' defiance. The Borg Krill, once thought to be unstoppable, were never seen again. Their empire, crippled by the loss of their fleet, fractured and fell into chaos. And though the crew of the Aurora's vengeance was lost to the Singularity, their legacy lived on, a beacon of hope shining through the darkness, reminding all who heard their story that even in the face of impossible odds, there is always a chance for victory. In the end, it was not technology, power, or fear that had won the day. It was the human spirit,